Politics is tough, even for the young people.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you at part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Is politics single or plural? Politics is tough. Politics are tough. I think you could probably use it both ways. I don't know. I got a smart college kid here, so maybe she can help me with my English this evening. Great to have you aboard. Thanks very much for tuning in. Yeah, tonight you're going to hear a story from a young lady who actually appeared on television at the first gubernatorial debate this year, said a few things, and it cost her status in the Young Republicans organization here in the state. One of the sillier conversations I think we've had, but her level of maturity and perspective I think is refreshing, and I think you should hear the story if you haven't already. Great to have you aboard. A little hectic out there in the world today security-wise. We tape the program, I'm looking at the clock, it's 1:36 and 40 seconds in the afternoon. Just found out that Governor Cuomo was also, or at least his office was in receipt of maybe a pipe bomb. This security situation obviously is unnerving. That headline is now seemingly partially incorrect, even though we just posted it, because there's been some conflict over whether or not there was some bomb sent to the White House. The White House would probably be out of line with the other targets, the Clintons, the Obamas, George Soros, CNN, all perceived to be left of center, seems to me. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that somebody has some kind of a ideology or theme with this, or some group does. You probably know a lot more about this now, given that we tape this in the early afternoon, so we will follow up with the expertise necessary over the few shows that we have coming up. Although tomorrow night we have scheduled a really important conversation about what's happening in Warwick and East Greenwich. I'm going to mention that in just a second. In the meantime, this headline is just part of the continued ridiculousness. The president has finally had to say, well, you know, you don't know, you can't say, you don't really. Here's the latest on the caravan.
Less than 50 miles into Mexico and more than 1,000 miles from the U.S. border, the caravan of migrants paused yesterday. Some took the time to receive medical care, and children filled up on food donated by local residents. Candles were lit to honor a fellow migrant who died after falling off a truck earlier this week.
Hoy estamos de luto. Este compañero venía con muchos sueños.
Today we're in mourning. He had many dreams, this man said.
You're going to find MS-13, you're going to find Middle Eastern.
After making those claims about the caravan on Monday, President Trump admitted yesterday he could not back them up.
There's no proof of anything. There's no proof of anything, but they could very well be.
This migrant from Honduras says he wants to tell the president that there are only humble, hardworking people in the group. The caravan is more than a month away from reaching the closest point in the U.S., and to make it to the San Diego border like a caravan earlier this year would double their journey.
Yeah, so it can't prove anything. Well, you know, it used to be that commanders-in-chief, presidents of the United States, statesmen would say, oh, can't say anything, so we won't assert anything. Can't prove anything, so we won't assert anything. The tone coming from this White House continues, and it continues to be not only ridiculous, but dangerous. I have no idea what potential connection exists between that security issue that we have in the country today, but all comes from the top in a lot of ways, right? Let's come home here and remind you about a conversation we had yesterday. Warwick sick time deal scrutinized was the headline. We've been on this for quite some time. Yesterday, Ken Block, the former gubernatorial candidate and Watchdog RI chairman, and Rob Cody, citizen watchdog in Rhode Island, were here to talk about this side arrangement, this side deal that seems to be alarming for taxpayers in Warwick because it created another kind of sick pay compensation program that has been followed for the last 5 years, but which does not appear in a contract, which may, based on investigations coming out, could have resulted in 7 figures worth of payment, maybe overpayment, to certain firefighters. How that whole thing resolves is anybody's guess. What investigations turn up will be very interesting, but it seems like this may not be the only place where it happened. Ken alluded to it last night. On Monday night in East Greenwich, it may have happened as well.
Well, it did happen. The East Greenwich town manager presented to the East Greenwich Town Council 11 secret side deals that were executed by the previous administration and the firefighters union. 11. So that's outrageous. It's happening in more than one place.
Side deal meaning they weren't ratified by the governing body that needed to ratify it.
Correct, and therefore invalid in the eyes of the law.
Program note, we actually did record that program last night, but it has not yet to air. It's airing tomorrow night. Sometimes we have a production schedule flip. But that was kind of interesting, and I was able to talk with Gail Corrigan, who is the town manager in East Greenwich, yesterday on the Dan York radio program, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO, and she listed for me in a file the multiple side agreements that East Greenwich has. Now, why is this interesting? Because it very well may be that many towns have these side agreements. You know, there's a cultural thing that always kind of weaves through. There's a commonality, although we handle taxpayer dollars, that eventually bleeds through this state when things are kind of awry. In East Greenwich, Ms. Corrigan suggests that, again, they're at a 7-figure overtime payment for a side agreement that involves how overtime is covered that has not been made public to the council and never appeared in a contract.
Obviously, a side agreement, it can be lawful. You can have any sort of side agreement you want. It could be a good idea. But the problem is when the side agreement is not brought to the light, when it's so-called subterranean and happens without anyone knowing about it, you're depriving the council, or even the public for that matter, to know what the content is and potentially the financial ramifications or other ramifications.
Now, Ms. Corrigan is also the subject of an ethics query. 2 Democratic council candidates in East Greenwich have leveled a charge at her with the Ethics Commission. The Ethics Commission has taken the case, but she gets a chance to defend herself with a hearing coming up whenever the Ethics Commission schedules it. Interestingly enough, her exposure of these side agreements seems to have an earnest timetable, because the Democrats who are charging her with ethics violations seemingly are working with those who enjoy the status quo of the side agreements. Does that make any sense to you? So that little 13,000 population tempest in a teapot in East Greenwich is going to be a little warm between now and Election Day. We may have Ms. Corrigan and some of the other players on both sides of this conversation in the next couple of weeks, if invitations are accepted. All righty. In the meantime, what was this all about? I have no idea. Mr. Gordon lost his cookies at North Kingstown High School. Listen, I'll ask the crew. Anita will certainly. Was he not one of the calmest people we've ever had on the set, ever? Here's Mr. Gordon, who's running for Attorney General with the Compassion Party. Polite. He was making a point there. I didn't notice he does finger point. Oh, but can't blame a guy for that. But he lost his mind on this on the stage last night, or yesterday, I guess, when he was sharing it with Peter Nerona, the former U.S. attorney running for Attorney General as well. Nerona obviously is a lock. You had a better chance of winning Powerball or Mega Millions or whatever it was at $1.6 billion than he does losing that race to Mr. Gordon. However, I guess Mr. Nerona used the M word too many times, and I did not know the M word was a problem. The M word is marijuana, which I think I used with Mr. Gordon. That's either, do we figure out, is that racist or a religious violation? It's a religious, you're supposed to say cannabis. Well, he had one too many marijuanas thrown at him, and he lost his mind. And of course the kids thought it was great, because the kids aren't in class. It's just the way it goes. All right, what can I tell you? Socks, for those of you at 7:30, You're riding a 1-0 lead. For those of you watching at midnight, I hope the damn game is over by now. I don't know how anybody gets any constructive work done when you're a fan of any World Series team. These games are way too long. But the Sox look like they have a lot of firepower. And again, it may be their year. I have my toes crossed as a Yankee fan. We'll meet our young Republican and hear her story when we come back. Stay with us.
So you said some of your friends are in support of the Democratic incumbent. You stated tonight that you would support Joe Trillo.
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, my ideology and values kind of align more so with Joe Trillo. I'm not really aligned with a lot of the Democratic values and the liberal ideologies.
So you would lean towards him. And why would you, if you lean Republican, why did you not choose Alan Fung as the winner tonight or the candidate that you would want to support?
So one of the biggest things for me is I can't really tell what he stands for, and I don't really want to vote for a candidate who doesn't take a stand on something. That kind of tells me or shows me poor leadership.
Oh boy, oh boy. That was a couple, 3 weeks ago, and what seemed like an innocuous, interesting conversation cost you your Young Republican Executive Board status, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Kalasia is, what year, Roger Williams?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior, and you head the Republican group there,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are politically engaged.
Yes.
And you've been on the Young Republican Executive Board for how long, or were?
About a year.
And your role there was, or is what?
It was the National Committee woman.
National Committee woman. Sounds very impressive.
Thank you.
What did it do?
So the job description was to attend different conferences around the country.
And did you?
No.
What? You say that with a well, I enjoy you. No. Matter of fact, I did not. Why did you not? Was there no budget, or you had no interest, or what happened?
We just never went to any conferences.
Okay. It seems like this organization, now that I've pried a little bit into it, Kalasia was on the radio show a while back talking about this before she resigned. She'll tell us about the play-by-play on that momentarily. But you seemingly are describing a group that might have a formidable name, but they're not doing much behind it, correct?
For the most part, all they do is help local candidates, which is important.
Yeah, it is important. But you've cited that there's a whole lot less communication than might have been appropriate with your dilemma, at least. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So what happened here? Here's what happened. You said that, and that was it. You were in trouble.
I was.
You got in big trouble. And on Facebook, which is where all young people share their lives and solve problems and conflict and all of that, on Facebook, the head of the Young Republicans, Mr. Jonathan Keith, who is a candidate for, I believe, state senator?
Yes.
In Rhode Island, posted the bylaws of the Young Republicans in terms of removing officers, and in it says, amongst other things, that he can bounce you without any cause, with or without reason.
Correct.
And he did so because, according to him, you took part in a post-debate on the WPRI forum where you supported Trillo over the Republican nominee Alan Fung, and then you took part in a radio interview and said the same thing. Statements like this jeopardize the Republican brand that we're trying to build. I have my own arguments with this. What are yours?
My basic argument is that Joe Trillo has been a Republican longer than Alan Fung, and I know that you can't really fully align certain values with the Republican Party, but as a conservative, Joe Trillo is more conservative. He's the pro-life candidate, et cetera, and that is why I personally chose to support him over candidate Alan Fung.
Okay, remember, Joe Trillo is the independent candidate for governor, but
Yes.
was a 16-year elected representative of his Warwick district as a Republican, was a Republican National Committeeman for real, and you know, is got a real royal going on with the Republican Party, no doubt. And even to this day, I get another press release today, you know, Joe is complaining that Alan Fung is copying his stuff, and It's getting bad. There are a lot of people out there that are very sensitive to Joe Trillo's race, though, because they believe that he is ripping Alan Fung's potential to beat Gina Raimondo simply by splitting the anti-Raimondo vote. Concerned about that?
Personally, I'm not. I think the problem with that is a lot of people don't see Joe as a legit candidate, and I do. You know, he wants to win the race just as much as Alan or Gina does.
You were a paid employee of Patricia Morgan.
Yes.
So you worked for her in the campaign. Patricia has received some scorn from party loyalists because she too did not endorse Alan Fung. She endorsed Joe Trillo. Did you act on her behalf, or was this your own independent thoughts?
This was my own independent thought. I just had a hard time blindly supporting a candidate who didn't fully align with my values.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
You just keep going back to you keep going back to a pretty simple default concept here.
Yes.
You then took on a gig with Trillo, correct?
Correct.
He was sensitive, though, to your controversy.
Yes, he was.
He said what to you?
He told me that he didn't want me helping him on the campaign if it was going to come along with a bunch of negativity and threats from the Republican, or some members of the Republican Party in Rhode Island. And I told him that that wasn't going to stop me from following my convictions and doing what I thought was best.
Right. So this was all social media induced, this vote that came down to take, pardon me for giggling, but I have a hard time with the social media real world stuff out there. But on Facebook, on the private Young Republicans page,
yes,
there was a deliberation and a vote taken, correct?
Correct.
And they gave you notice that at a certain date you would be removed from the board.
Correct.
Never a meeting, never a, hey, Kalasia did something unique out there, and it's called a little turbulence, or caused a little turbulence, so why don't we all get together and talk this one out? That never happened.
That never happened until after I had gone on your radio show a couple weeks ago.
Because I was pretty tough on them for having not talked this one out.
Yes.
And what happened? They scheduled a meeting?
They scheduled a meeting on, I believe, the day that I was supposed to be expelled from the organization, and I resigned a few days before the meeting.
Because you didn't want to have this discussion or debate with your colleagues?
Because I had that time to reflect, and I realized that I didn't want to be a part of an organization who forced its executive members to blindly support candidates that went against their values.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about whether you're supposed to take one for the team or whether there's any kind of tent in the young Republican version. Stay with us. And so there is debate number 2, actually, that I believe. That is the second debate that the governor candidates have had. That one at URI. You know, or is that the first one? That is the first one? That's the one at Roger Williams? No, I don't think so. Yes? Swear to God? Swear to God?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
All right, Anita's about ready to throw a brick at my head right now, but I don't know. I've seen too many debates. I just like to be correct. That's all. That's the debate that you attended at Roger Williams. Duly noted that I don't know what camera I'm on. The lights aren't working tonight, so if I'm going like this, it's not because I'll come over there. The governor has this grin on her face, standing between Alan Fung and Joe Trillo.
Yes.
And I think the entire campaign has been her understanding that these two guys are her best friends. There's a theory amongst the Fung supporters out there that Joe Trillo conspired, can you imagine, with Gina Raimondo to run for office to prevent Alan Fung from winning. Well, we're 2 weeks away from the election. What do you make of that conversation?
It's a very interesting speculation. I think it couldn't be farther from the truth.
Because?
Joe Trillo would never conspire with Gina Raimondo. or vice versa.
Why does that make you giggle?
I think it's very far-fetched. I think it's just a way for them to come up with an excuse in the present as to in case they lose.
So let's do a little, well, I think your answers are pretty succinct and I can't quarrel with them. Let's do a little role play here. If you had actually been called into an executive board meeting well before it was even threatened that you would be eliminated, right? Mm-hmm. I'll play the role of the president of the Rhode Island Young Republicans as I think it should have gone.
Okay.
Kalasia, what were you thinking the other night? You're either on the team or you're not.
So I said that I wanted to support Joe Trillo because for me his values align more with myself.
Okay, but don't you understand that Trillo, every vote for Trillo takes a vote away from Alan Fung in our mind, and we're trying to build a brand here, and isn't party more important and the bigger picture more important and taking Gina Raimondo out more important than you articulating support for Joe Trillo?
Well, while in your mind every vote for Trillo is a vote taken away from Fung, I believe that Trillo is the alternative Republican candidate for people that are real conservative Republicans that are pro-life. They couldn't imagine voting for someone that's not.
Well, listen, you got to get in line. Sometimes you don't get everything you want. That's what party building is all about. Don't you understand that?
I know you can never get everything you want. However, it's important to stand firm in your beliefs.
But the bigger picture and the team, isn't it more important?
Not always.
Well, why is this an exception?
I think it's an exception because we have a very interesting race with an independent candidate who has been a Republican on the ballot longer than Alan Fung has.
All right. Well, I think you handled that very well. All right, that was the role play.
Oh, thank you.
The one answer, though, I think the one answer, I wouldn't want to paint your script for you because I think you're doing well enough on your own. The thing that bothers me is the notion that there can be no diversity of opinion. They're about building brand. What is the brand? Monolithic, stay in line, don't budge. I think that's something that I think the young Republicans and maybe the Republican Party in general, as small as it is, as fledgling as it is, needs to understand. You agree?
I agree.
All right. Leaving voluntarily rather than getting popped, you think that was the right thing to do?
Yes, I do. I think that I chose to do that because everyone had already voted on the Facebook group. So I didn't really see those votes changing by meeting in person.
All right. What has this done? What is the moral of the story in your young, politically interested life? What has this whole thing told you in 30 seconds or less?
You can't make everyone happy, but at the end of the day, you need to stand firm in your beliefs and values. It's really quick.
It's pretty succinct, right?
Yeah.
Remind everybody what you want to do when you grow up in a couple of years.
I'd like to go to grad school in D.C., and then I'd like to become a communications director for a company. And stay involved in politics as well.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Thank you.
Raw talent is needed, and you have more than that.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks.
Nice to see you again.
Moral of the story, the big tent of the Republican Party. Yeah, right. Final word when we come back. My guest tonight reminds me there is hope for the future. Thank goodness. All right, tomorrow night, in a program that we've already recorded, so I know what's been said, a discussion on the side agreement in Warwick and a hint about it in East Greenwich, and gosh knows where it could be. These are important things that taxpayers need to know about, and it seems to me it's just the beginning of the conversation, not the end, right? Also, note, big bond questions for Rick and URI on the agenda, the voting agenda, the ballot, so to speak, or literally, on November 6th. That'll be our Friday conversation with the bosses of those two campuses. See you on the radio at 3 tomorrow. Bye.